sharing, and you have this community who like comments and stuff, but then brands started reaching out to me. I'm like, and so I was like, oh, okay, well, this is the thing then.
It's, a lot of people were, you still got the same good, like authentic.
Authenticity.
Yeah, and they're doing the checks, which eBay's gotten really good at that too now, so it's nice. Anyways, look at us talking about. yeah, we don't even get into the questions. Okay, I guess I'll open this up. Hey, it's Walter. This is another episode of the Social Academy, where we're interviewing influencers, content creators, and industry professionals in the world of social media. Today we have Style Sam, Samantha Stewart, the always fashionable, here in the studio. Thanks for coming,
Thanks
Sam.
for having me.
Yes,
Thank you so much for having me.
So I guess we'll just go off with the easy question first. If you want to introduce yourself, and I know we just said your name, but and what do you do?
Okay. Well, hi, I'm Samantha Stewart, the founder of Style of Sam, where I educate and inspire people to look, feel, and do good, or as I say, stay glam, do good. And so I share a lot of fashion content, beauty content, some home stuff, but basically in a lot of like positive attitude type things.
I love the positive. You kind of called me up. I was like, wow, because obviously social media needs a lot more positivity out there, and I really love how you got your little tagline and stuff. And I was like, hey, okay, cool. I love this already. Okay, so what has your journey looked like on social media? Like, how do you really get started on there, or like even from the the humble beginnings when it was just kind of social media talking to friends? What was that?
Sure. Well, I mean, my original background is as a blogger.
Okay.
I don't know that term is not used anymore.
Yeah, no.
But a long time ago. Basically, my husband and I did a short stint in Europe, and so we were there for a short while. And at that time, all my friends had blogs, and they had families. And so back then, a blog was more like an online journal or online diary for your friends to keep up with you.
Oh yeah, no, I remember like Live Journal, and of course, even the early days of GeoCities and Angel. It's like
so it was like that. And so at the time we actually had a lot of infertility problems. So my friends were like, "You should blog about that, and share your infertility struggles and what you're doing." And honestly, I just didn't feel comfortable doing that because there's like a lot of emotions and up and down roller coaster stuff. So I was like, you know what, I'll just do fashion. And so my blog used to be called My Friends Want Me to Blog. I mean, like, there's nothing original, but I couldn't think of anything, and I would just share fashion. Like, my friends would say, "Oh, Sam," because they knew I loved fashion, and at work I was always getting dressed up. They're like, "What do I wear with this vest?" or "How do I wear this belt?" So I would just kind of answer their fashion questions, and that's kind of how it got started. Way back before Instagram.
Okay.
And then I would just randomly share on Facebook. But when Instagram got started, it was really fun. But I actually did use it more like it was meant to be because they were cool filters and it was all this retro vibes.
Right.
And I loved those filters like Sienna or whatever.
You got the names. Paris.
Yes, I was like, I love this. So I would just like take pictures of my husband and like photo, like flat lays or whatever, and just put the filters on him. I mean, I just had so much fun with that. Oh, yeah. But like as I was sharing my blog, I would post on Facebook, and my husband's friends would say like, "So Dawn, how are you doing? I see how Sam's doing because she's all over the feed." So I started like separating out at that time. Yeah. That's when I was like, okay, we're gonna use social media more for my business stuff, and then not because like I'm inundating his friends with like pictures of my outfit, and they don't really care about that.
Yeah. No, so it kind of naturally progressed into like, oh wow, maybe I need to start making this my own platform of sorts. Well, and did you as you kind of went into that, you kind of naturally was like, I'm going to focus on Instagram, or what? Is there other platforms you kind of gave attention to?
It was still more the blog and then Instagram. Okay. Even though like honestly, my age demographic is all about Facebook. I'm an older person, but I loved Instagram just because I'm a very visual person. Yeah. And so I was just thinking, like, I
don't have to read.
Yeah, I don't have to read.
I'm an artist
you can read.
If
you want to.
I'll read, what is going on in this picture? I'll read the caption, sure. But I'm the same way with you. That's why I gravitated towards it too. Is like, oh great, a platform where I could just share pictures. Like you said, when it first came out. Obviously everyone was like posting the pictures of the food or their gatherings or whatever, but I was like, well, what else can you share in here that we didn't really, now that there's a platform dedicated to just
Yeah.
visuals, and obviously fashion's like this is the platform for it too.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I could post the fits.
But
you
it
know?
was so much inspiration. I
Yes,
mean, it was
that
like
too.
it was before,
Yeah.
the video, the short form video and
Oh, yeah.
everything. It was like amazing to like see what you could see on there.
Oh, I feel like it's grown like, quadruple the amount, even more so now, because I mean, you can spend all night on For You or whatever, just
Oh,
go down the
yeah.
rabbit holes and look up hashtags, and
Yes.
you're like, well, I wonder if someone else is, sometimes I'll look up those obscure things, like, okay, someone else, like, can I see a picture of that, because I want to see what that looks like if someone's
Yeah.
wearing it,
Oh my gosh, yeah. And you can like research if you want to go somewhere. I mean, it's like great.
That's great. It is wild. So I guess we're in. I'm gonna go take a little step backwards now. What did you do before social media?
Well, I'm actually a pharmacist by trade.
Oh, okay.
I say fashion
wow.
is my drug of choice.
Yeah.
I still practice pharmacy, but not as often as I used to. I just work about 1 weekend a month, it's called PRN as needed. So I am a pharmacist, and I still am a pharmacist.
Yeah. So did the fashion side of things kind of just slowly take over? That you were like, wow, I could kind of start doing this more? Like,
Yeah, so I mean, really, it all had to do with the whole family journey, because
Yeah.
we were trying to have a family. It took us a really long time, actually, and both of my children are adopted. But then, everyone's like, oh, you should work less, you should be less stressed. So I was like, okay, well, maybe if I work part-time. So I've worked since I was 16. I've like all through college, all through pharmacy, all the time. And so when I started working less, I'm like, well, what am I going to do? I'm like, I'm not working. So then I started filling up my time with like content creation.
Wow. That's so you were talking about people telling you to start a blog about, your personal journey through the infertility and stuff like that. Did you end up finding like a community of people that you connected to? Because I feel like that probably was helpful in that sense, maybe.
Well, so I did, whenever we adopted my son, I shared like a blog post, kind of like our story.
Yeah.
But I think when I was going through it, there were groups, like our doctor said, there's these groups of people, because again, back then there wasn't as much social media, but I never felt comfortable enough to like reach out, and I kind of wish I would have, because there really were like a lot of emotions with that, and I didn't know how to share without being completely vulnerable, and it's a little scary to put yourself online out there when it's not positive. Like I'm a super positive and optimistic person, and if I'm like in a bad mood, I don't want to share with people, because I only want to share like good stuff and not bad stuff or sad stuff. And so for me personally, it was hard to share that, because I know this sounds so cheesy, but I just like to share like love and light and positivity, and I don't like to share like downer things.
No, I totally understand. I mean, hey, there's some things you want to keep private or, to yourself. And like you said, sometimes it is kind of hard to open up, even though there's other people out there.
Yes.
With that, it's just like, and to that, it's like you kind of find inspiration with those other people who are sharing too, going like, oh, wow, I can, especially if you're looking for answers. Or,
And I realized later on, like a lot later on, that there was a community out there that I could have shared with. But like people have messaged me personally, and I've talked to them on the phone, like shared like whatever they want to ask. I'm an open book. It's just I never shared like all the like in the moment of what I was going through.
No, that's a good point. I was wondering about that, if like, people
people reach out all the time, and then I don't mind sharing with them like any parts of it, because I feel like if it can help them or make them feel understood, I don't mind sharing that with them. I just didn't know how to share it on my blog.
Well, sure. No, well, it's going from there. How did you find the motivation to start putting yourself out there and sharing this fashion kind of sense? How did you get the courage there?
Oh my gosh, that was like, it's funny, because I actually didn't, like, I love fashion, but actually don't like pictures of myself. So that was really hard, because we were in Germany, and I'm taking these pictures of myself, and I'm like, oh, these photos are horrible. But I was like, I'm just like trying to share what I'm wearing, or share about what people like in Europe are wearing. So, but I thought that was just really much more fun. So I had to get kind of over myself, because when you put yourself out there, you could like dissect yourself and just, analyze. And I mean, it's really easy when you're, you know, it's so funny because you can look at your friend and you can say, oh my gosh, you're beautiful and you're all this, but it's so easy to look at yourself and say, oh gosh, look at that and this. And it's kind of weird how people are like that.
Well, and I feel like fashion, though, in that sense, kind of helps you get that courage to kind of like make you feel good. You know, like nothing makes me feel better than wearing a new pair of shoes. And, you know, it's that kind of feeling. So I'm sure that kind of played into that, where you're like, you know what, I do look good in this jacket or whatever. You know,
well,
like,
and that's part of my mantra. Like I have a bunch of sayings, but one of them is just for how you want to feel. So even if I wake up and I'm feeling kind of crummy or tired or whatever, I get dressed up and I'm like, I feel amazing now. Like, and you go for it in the day feeling good.
And I think there's something, you know, deeper to that, and something even I'm kind of realizing is like clothes that make you comfortable, or just there is that element there that's like, and I'm starting to kind of like, even for myself, kind of like lean into more of those kind of outfits or whatever that just make me feel comfortable and good. And, you know, it's like, whereas, you know, some things you might feel like you force it on, you know, where you're like, okay, I like these, you know, these pants or whatever, but maybe not.
If you don't feel good, it's actually very visible. Like you can tell, like you'll be adjusting things. You just, like, that's why when people are asking me for advice, I'm like, you don't have to look like me. You don't have to wear what I'm wearing. You have to wear what feels good for you. Like, you know, because like I like big earrings, but you might not, you know? So.
Sure, no. It seems like that's all part of the journey. You're going to go through a lot of just like, okay, I'll donate these or resell these, whatever, because, you know, I thought those were going to be my look or thing, but, you know, it's always that finding the right thing that fits.
But I think that's what's so fun, because it's fashion. You put it on, you can take it off. It's not like a tattoo, you know? Like if it doesn't work, you're like, okay, next thing.
Yeah, going back in the closet, it'll never see the light again. Or no one will ever know I had that jacket.
Right.
So when did you, as you start posting, when did you start seeing the results come in, especially from Instagram and maybe, you know, Time Facebook, when you kind of go like, hey, this is a thing, I think, and people are kind of liking this, and I'm kind of starting to find the, you know, rhythm in it. You know?
I mean, because I was just sharing, and you have this community who like comments and stuff, but then brands started reaching out to me. I'm like, and so I was like, oh, okay, well, this is the thing then. Like people want me to help them with like, you know, sharing their brands. And so that's when I realized, like, I had been doing it probably after I started working part-time and I had more, you know, time to do this. That's when I started really seeing some traction, because I was putting more time into it. And then brands were reaching out, and I was like, oh, okay, this is a thing.
I never thought about that. Yeah, I'm sure once you got those DMs, it's like, hey, if we send you some stuff, we were like, okay, like, I like this thing.
I'm like, sure, it's exciting.
That's awesome. So here's, I guess we're gonna get into that kind of content. You know, as far as it goes, what is a day in the life of that kind of look? Do you plan in advance to what you're going to post, or is there? Is it more casual or kind of like in the moment? You know, I'm curious, like, what is the day in the life of like a fashion influencer? How do you? I'm sure you wake up and you're like, okay, what, you know, or do you have your fits scheduled in advance? You know, what does that look like?
I mean, it is actually. So me personally, everyone is really different, but mine is planned. I have to, because I have little ones. My work hours are when they're at school. So after drop off, it's like starts a work day for me until pickup time. So I'm pretty planned. I have to batch create, batch shoot, batch copy, I batch everything.
Wow.
And so it is planned. However, there's room for flexibility. So if there's something fun going on and I can quickly edit it, I will post also. Like stories are more in the moment, and you get to see, I feel like, the more real me, because I love stories. You just talk to your community, you know.
Yeah.
But my feed, because it is pretty planned. There's some flexibility unless there's like a campaign, like a scheduled campaign. But I have things pretty not set, but like, okay, I'm gonna post this on this day, this on this day, this on this day, just so I have content to post and share. And like, because I used to just post to post. Like, I'm like, oh, I have to post Monday through Sunday. You have to get something out there. But now I'm like, okay, I really only want to post if there's something worthy of sharing with my community, you know, because like I try to like teach them something or inspire them or share something positive. So now I'm not as hard on myself about like, okay, if it's not, if something isn't up, it's okay.
Yeah, no, I feel like that is a shift once you get to a certain point of like, okay, I'm you're less chasing and less kind of like spamming people's feeds of just like trying to keep up, and more like, okay, the next post I'm gonna put a little more time and attention to it. And you realize, the people that are with you will stick around and kind of like keep up with it. So,
well, because everyone is busy, and everyone is busy. There's so much going on. So I feel like there's no. I mean, it's not there's no point, but like for me personally, I feel like there's no point unless there's something good, like something worthy of sharing for them, like something that they can learn from or be inspired from, because there's so much noise.
Yes.
There's like so much out there already, so you might as well give them something good.
Yeah, no, I like that. So in terms of where do you see the most return on the amount of time you put into something? And I meant to ask that earlier. Are you on TikTok as well?
I am. I'm
okay,
on all the platforms.
Yeah. So where do you see the most kind of return
Sure.
for Instagram versus TikTok? And do you kind of balance that kind of like focus and energy you put into each of those platforms?
I definitely focus a lot of energy on Instagram. I see the most return on there. Probably spend the most time on there. And then I repurpose my Instagram content for TikTok, for Pinterest. And actually
Pinterest.
I use some of the, and for Facebook, but then also I use some of that content for my YouTube also.
Oh, okay.
So you like YouTube Shorts, but then also like some of the videos I can use for, my long form videos.
I like you're tapping into like perfect or good, like the uses of each kind of like element of those platforms. Like you said, stories kind of capturing in the moment. And then I even think about the YouTube aspect and with the shorts now that you see on that.
I mean, there's like so many platforms you have to be on. It's a little hard, honestly.
Yeah, but so do you, and also in that sense within the fashion kind of community, I guess I kind of see it as well as like it is kind of more so YouTube stories, shorts, or YouTube shorts, Instagram stories, Instagram posts, and like you said, maybe TikTok, you're kind of having a little fun on just like, probably on those posts where you kind of like do those, cool tricks and transitions with the fits and whatnot. I'm sure you kind of think about how, like Instagram, you get good with a good photo. Here we go, but TikTok's a little bit different on that method.
It is, and I would say I'm a lot. I feel like I know Instagram a lot better than TikTok. TikTok is awesome. It's just that I don't create media specifically for TikTok, and I feel like TikTok is awesome because it's like really very organic. Like you could just get on there and like talk for like a second and say whatever, and it may do really well. But like I feel like, or in my, like what I see, it seems like Instagram is still a little bit more refined. You still have to do a lot more editing, and on TikTok you can just like go on there and just do whatever, and it's okay, and it's cool, and some of it will do really well, and some of it will go viral.
Yeah.
But so I feel like I know some of my friends specifically create content for TikTok, but like I said, I'm kind of more repurposing. Just because I feel like I'm honestly short on time.
No, I feel like you have to do that. Like you said, there's so many platforms. You got to be resourceful.
Yeah.
And also going back to like you were talking about seeing the return and like, okay, well, it seems like my audience is more on this platform versus that. So that's very. And YouTube, you were talking about YouTube. Or do you do your blogging on there, or just kind of like your shorts?
So I do shorts on there, but also I do have YouTube long form media. I love YouTube. It's just it just takes a lot longer because you can really communicate so much more to your community. You can really teach and like talk about so much longer, because on Instagram you have like a very short amount of time, or even if you spend a longer time on stories, it goes away unless you save it on your highlights. But with YouTube you can really talk and teach, and so I love YouTube. It's just like it takes a lot of time to edit, create the thumbnail, like all the things. So I love it. And so actually this year I'm going to be transitioning more towards YouTube and being more consistent on it.
Touching on that, a lot of your content is that kind of high fashion a little more on that side of brands, and a lot of people might not have like the quite access to that. How do you kind of keep it a little more accessible to everyone? Because it seems like a fine balance to kind of.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, I definitely like to showcase like luxury items and high-end goods, but I guess whenever I am, like the concepts I teach, you don't have to have like LV or Chanel. It's the concepts I teach are applicable to all style. And then also within my blog, my Like to Know It and YouTube, I get a lot of requests for, can you share like a look for less? And so if I have something linked like the Chanel earrings, I also have like a similar item that like gets the feel, but it's not like $1 million.
Yeah, it's like it really goes back to the core fashion. It's like the silhouettes and just like
none of that. You don't need brand names for that.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, okay, you're really kind of that's a really good thing to kind of touch on is like it seems like you're also kind of, though you came from a pharmaceutical background, you're kind of becoming more of a fashion designer of that sense because of so much experience with it,
I mean, I've always loved fashion.
Or stylist.
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved fashion. It's just, and at work, I remember one of my managers was like, you should do a PowerPoint presentation on like what to wear to work. I'm like, really? I mean, for the pharmacy. I was like, okay. I mean, I've always loved it, but I think I don't have an education background in it or anything, but it's just something I've always loved. So to me, I like sharing what I know. If it helps someone, then that's great.
Were you also looking for some of that kind of tips and advice as you went on this journey? And like, was that something you kind of like also like, as much as you're putting time creating content, you're also researching and kind of getting inspiration like you were talking about.
Yeah, and like I think that's the thing. Like I look at trends and I like to see what's trending, but at the same time, trends don't work for everyone. And that's what I always say. I'm like, that could be on trend, but if it doesn't work for you, then just leave it. Just leave the trend. Like don't take it with you, because the thing is sometimes you could try all these things and you can have all the latest trends or all the it bag or it shoes or whatever, but if you don't feel good in it, it's like I said, it shows. Like I always say like your best accessory is your confidence and your smile. And so like if you don't have it, it doesn't matter what you're wearing.
Yeah.
So,
no, that's powerful. I like that statement. It is, because that carries everything else, really, the confidence smile, which obviously you exude a lot. I'm sure you can make anything work, what you wear. So, but it's a good mindset. And like you said, sometimes people get caught up chasing those trends.
Yeah.
But sometimes what you're wearing will eventually maybe come back in trend, or you kind of make your own trend.
And I understand too, because sometimes I'm like, ooh, that's a really cute, that's a really cute bag. I want that bag. So I understand that, but just know like sometimes you don't have to have those things. You have to kind of find, your style. It's a lot of experimentation, actually.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of experimentation has really got you focused on what your brand is. That's a whole nother journey. It's like finally coming to like, okay, this is me, this is my voice, which can be, like you said, a lot of experimentation, trial and error, and thinking like, oh, I thought I was this kind of fashion influencer. I'm sure you went through phases.
Yes, for sure. Sure.
Was it okay? So when you're working with brands, kind of going back to like the partnerships, is there something you like or maybe dislike about that influencer exchange?
Sure.
Or is there something you wish that companies maybe considered a little bit more within that kind of like contact of communication, or kind of were more aware of?
Yeah, I think it's always, because it's brands are reaching out, and so they're have a goal to get, they're either like more notice for their brand, or return on investment for sales. And I guess depending on what their actual goals are, it first of all, communication, like you said, is most important. Like I need to know what they're looking for, and they reached out to me for a reason. Mm-hmm. So that's number one. We need to know like what the other person is looking for. And then two, sometimes there are gifted collaborations, which are really nice too. But I've noticed that on some gifted collaborations, there are very high expectations. And I'm like, listen, these gifts, they don't pay my bills. Like, I mean, like, and some of them, and it's, like I said, it's still really nice, but there's like very high expectations, like, oh, you received it. Can I get like something to review back in like 2 days? And I'm like,
Wow. Yeah.
there's a schedule. Like I mean, maybe it's different for everyone, but like I said, there's like a schedule for how I do things. And so like some of these gifted collaborations, there's no contract, and it's nice when they're saying, oh, we want to send this for you. There's no pressure, whether or not you want to share it. Usually those are more, they're just like a better feeling than than some of these brands who are gifting you something. They have expectations, which is fine, but their expectations are extremely high for a gifted item.
Sure.
And so sometimes I'm like, I could just buy this, and then I could just post it once versus like 8 times in 1 month. You're just like, so, and it's like $100 thing. So I'm like, okay, well, that's a lot. You're expecting a lot. And so I think I think that maybe I'm always appreciative of working with any brands, because that's how I got started. But I think that sometimes some of the brands maybe just need to consider like what they're asking. Like if you're giving someone something that's $100, but you're expecting like $800 worth of work,
right?
You kind of have to maybe be a little bit reasonable.
No, that's a very good point. So, and with that too, have you been a little more, because now that you kind of established more of your brand, are you a little more like, hey, I appreciate the opportunity, but I'm going to have to pass on? Is there moments like that where you're like, this doesn't quite fit?
It doesn't quite fit, or maybe my community might not like it, because sometimes some things that I'm like, oh my gosh, I would love this. I'm like, oh, well, will my community like it? And some of the things that maybe I'm like, okay, I'm not so sure, but I think my community will really like it. I'll sometimes take a chance on that. So yeah, I am more selective on partnerships, and it has to do with like what I feel like would be beneficial to me and or my community.
Right. So you're a little more kind of like you were saying, like the ones that might be a little more needy. You're like, well, this isn't like, again, your audience and community more. You're probably a little more strict on like kind of like again, what suits you, not just kind of going with just because it's an opportunity.
Yeah.
And it seems like there's always going to be opportunities out there.
Yeah, but I mean, and that's the thing. It was always kind of like that from the get-go, and I guess I would, if someone who's starting out, I would have that advice, just like, you have to be true to yourself. So if a brand is approaching you and it just really has nothing to do with like your brand or anything, and it doesn't feel right, just don't do it. Because it'll be very apparent.
You're right. Going back to, again, what you're wearing, what you're doing, even though you think you're hiding it, it's coming back, this video feels a little off, I'm sure, or whatever. And kind of digging a little more deep on those partnerships, how does that kind of monetization go? You were kind of talking about like, if you're given something they want, this amount of work. I mean, like, is there a return you're kind of getting from that? Like, is there? Sure.
Well, there's like paid collaborations and there's gifted. And so there's, with paid collaborations and campaigns, there's definitely deliverables, timelines, and things like that. And same with gifted. They do have usually, if they're gifting it to you, but with expectations, they have certain deliverables that they want and within a certain timeline. And so that's the thing, you have to just say yes or no depending on what will work, or ask more questions if you're not sure. If you don't know.
Good tip right there. Ask the questions that you need to. No, I feel like it's, you're kind of going back to like the whole, your time. Like you said, you're on a kind of set schedule. I'm sure there's also opportunities too where you're like, oh man, I want to do this, but I'm not gonna make it, or and maybe hopefully do you kind of look for opportunities where like, hey, can we work on this timeline and all that kind of
that's
stuff?
the thing. I'll just say, if there's a brand I really want to work with, but something doesn't fit, you just try to communicate with them and say, hey, I won't be able to do it within this timeline. Can we change that? Or these are a lot of deliverables. Would you consider this? Or like basically just kind of trying to work together to come to a point where both parties feel like they're winning. Like, because you don't ever want to feel like, no one wants to feel like they're taken advantage of. You don't want to feel like you're taken advantage of. They don't want to feel like they're taken advantage of. You want both parties to come out feeling, okay, this is good for both of us. So you want to come out with like a winning like finale.
Sure. Yeah. No. And this is really a fascinating insight because again, I didn't even think about like you got the gifted partnerships and then you got the paid partnerships.
Yes.
And as someone too, as we're all kind of like whether we're content creators, whatever, we're kind of getting on Instagram. Sometimes you're like, oh, you're just trying to take every opportunity you get, and then you're not really like, hey, is there any way, trying to, communicate because you feel like, oh, I don't know if I should step, whatever.
But then you have to realize you have a say too, because if you're the one who's creating content, you have a say also.
Yeah, no.
So, I mean, because it has to be somewhat organic or just fit right, but then also you're the one who's doing it. It's like, so they want you to do a job, but you're doing the job. So you both have to come to a good agreement.
I love that term you said, organic. I think that's another thing that's, especially within the fashion influencer community, is really kind of being authentic and being organic. I think that touches on two good points. And I feel like, kind of scrolling through your feed, it feels very authentic and organic to you, where it just seems like you're like, okay, I'm kind of posing with this and doing that. And I'm like, wow, this like nothing felt it. And now meeting you, I'm like, wow, yeah, this is crazy. Now I can hear you talk and it matches, and I think that's really impressive.
Good,
to match that voice and presence online, because that can always be a disconnect. Yeah, I'm sure
it's true.
Met people who were like, oh, this is not at all what you were presenting.
Yeah. It's actually, sometimes I've met some people and I'm like, oh, that's really disappointing. I call them kind of like, what did I call, like a floppy fish. I'm like, oh, they seem so like excited and happy online, and then you're like, oh, they have like no personality, or it's just kind of disappointing.
No, hey, I apologize, because again, this is amazing. I love that I get to talk to you, because it's like, dang, I can be like, yeah, Sam's legit.
Oh, thanks. I'm legit.
You're legit. She ain't front. And so, going back to those opportunities, what's one of the coolest opportunities you've been contacted about, in this kind of journey? Yeah.
My gosh, it's just so crazy, because like I said, I'm a pharmacist. I work in a hospital, and like because of social media, I've gotten to work with all these amazing brands that I love, and like I've gone on brand trips. Like I've worked with Neiman Marcus, and then like Cabby sent me out to California, and I was like part of their campaign, and like in their campaigns, like print and video campaigns. And then like most recently, I was invited to the Louis Vuitton fashion show in Dallas. I was like literally dying. I was like, oh my God. I was like, is this a joke? I had to like look at the email and make sure it was like legit. I mean, so it's just crazy that I feel like little old me, like this just person from Fort Worth who's like doing stuff, gets to meet and like work with these brands and go do these things. It's like really like a dream come true.
Yeah. No, and I might be misquoting this. I know, the late great Virgil Abloh was like, everything I do for my like 10-year-old, 14-year-old self. And I feel like it's got to be a trip when you're being contacted by those brands, kind of those full circle moments where you're like, I didn't even think I'd be, even me going to like work at doing collaborations with Neiman Marcus, or even being flown out, like, what?
I mean, are you kidding?
That's powerful.
Like, it is, because like growing up, we didn't have any designer things. Like we shopped at garage sales. Like I did not have. If I had a name brand thing, it was because it was given to us. Like it's just like all this stuff is just crazy. I mean,
well, and can you dig a little deeper in that? Like the one about you were traveling for. What was that experience like? What was going on there?
I mean, I just the brand Cabby. I'm a Cabby ambassador this year, and I have been for a couple of years. But they're this brand, and they said they wanted to have real people as part of their campaign, and so they flew me to LA, and then we did like a day of shooting, like for their print catalog for. And like they have what's like kind of like it's called Cabby Scoop, but it's basically like almost like a fashion week for their whole Cabby executives and people. And they had me like, I was like, there was like life-size pictures of me. I mean, it was just really, I felt like I kept feeling like it was very surreal, because I just was, I mean, it's even hard to put in words, because it's just like, I can't believe I got to do something like that.
Has it given you inspiration to see, like, well, how much further can I take this? Like, what, I wonder if I can tap into that other brand I want to work with. And, you know, just the fact that, like, social media is taking you to these opportunities and that far, is that something you're like, okay, like, I'm going to go harder now and got like, you know,
Well,
like,
yeah.
what's that?
I mean, I guess like I guess yes, I would love to do something.
Yeah.
Like I would love to go to Paris Fashion Week one
Yes,
day.
yes. And I
That
think
would
it's
be amazing.
possible. I think,
yeah,
hey, you
I
see-
mean, it's on my vision board.
Yeah.
So like, I'm hoping it's gonna happen. But I guess I feel like there's strategies to try to
Yeah.
do that. But I guess the way that I know how to do it is just like really try to be my best self and really be positive and help people along the way. Like
Right.
kind of, you know.
And if it goes back to what you were saying, it's like what you put out there, I
Yeah.
think, is what you get back in
Yes.
return. And I feel like these collaborations and people are reaching out to you are wanting that. You know, what
Yeah.
you're putting out there. And, you know, like you said, you don't want to put the down. You're like, hey, this is, and the other brand's like, oh man, like again, you're a really good presence. And I can imagine being on that set, like, which must be a different kind of process and production compared to just shooting pictures at home.
Oh my gosh, yeah, like because I'm my own glam team or whatever, and then like the people who like the people who were doing the hair and makeup, like I think they done like Christy Turlington's, like, and she's like a supermodel, like I love. And I was like, oh my god, they've touched her hair and my hair, like I'm like dying. I'm like, oh wow, this is just amazing.
That is the biggest trip I can't imagine, just being like, I can't believe I'm, you know, like in around those other talented people,
Yeah.
like-minded people too, who are kind of like, and it all started from just posting
I
a
know.
picture.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I know. Because I got to meet like Gwyneth Paltrow because she did a
Whoa.
Goop pop up like in Dallas. I was like, I mean, that's what I mean. It's like the craziest thing. I'm like, wow, this is like unreal.
I can't. Yeah, like you said, it does. It's hard to sometimes the reality of it.
Yes.
I can't imagine. It's hard to really put in words where you're like, this is just, I don't know. This feels like a dream. I bet. You know?
Yeah, I mean, like when you're doing the things, it's not as glamorous as it looks, but
Yeah, that's another thing. I'm sure you kind of get lost in that, where you're so maybe within your bubble. You're taking pictures of home. You don't think, oh, this is not a big deal. But the fact that these opportunities and connections come about, you're like, oh, well, okay.
Yeah.
I think some people can kind of and to that, some people don't see those behind the scenes. What you're talking about. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure with your life and family, that's a lot of work, and you're not showing all the work
not
that
that
you're doing.
glamorous. Yeah. I mean, it is fun, but it's just like not that glamorous. There's like
Yeah.
homework and dinner, bedtime. There's a lot of things.
That's a lot. Yeah, you're lucky you got your hair done.
Yeah, right? Oh my gosh, at the thunderstorm, everyone woke up like at 4:30 today.
Oh,
So I was like, okay, try not to look tired.
That's amazing. So I guess what is it? Oh, we're almost at the end. So I guess to kind of like go, I'm sure you get this a lot and questions as well. What's your biggest piece of advice to someone who wants to get into this? I mean, and also, is there any kind of tips where they can kind of begin? Like you said, it doesn't have to be luxury. Do you have other kind of like suggestions about like thrifting or resale? That kind of stuff.
Well, for sure. I feel like if someone wants to get into this, there's definitely opportunities. I mean, there's a lot of people, but everyone is different and they have their own point of view. And so that's number one. You have to be yourself. Number two, you have to have your why. And maybe you're trying to support your family, so you want $1 million. You want to earn $1 million, but that's an outcome. But it has to be bigger than that. Like, you have to have your why, otherwise there won't be longevity. Because it's not easy. It's a lot of hard work, and it's not as glamorous as it seems. And so you will burn out, or you won't have longevity if you don't have like a really strong why. And then as far as like tips, you can start off anywhere. It could be because like thrifting, vintage, like whatever you want to do, but you have to commit to it and just kind of make it work. Like if you can't post on social media 5 times a day or whatever, you can only do 3 times a week. Start off with 3 times a week. Build that in and then work up. It's kind of like working out. Like you're like, okay, I'm going to try to start working out 7 days a week. Start with 3 days a week. Because like going from 0 to 3 is still a lot, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So like if you can commit to that and then work up, and then like as long as you can be consistent, and that's really the main key. Like that's one of the things that I'm always working on is the consistency, because that's the hardest thing. There's so much going on in life. If you have another job and you're trying to make this a side hustle or
Right.
whatever, it's just you have to find a way to make it work to where you can actually do it and then keep building from that.
And then touching on that first point, I didn't think about that. I'm sure you get that a lot too. People like trying to chase and copy what someone else is doing and being less themselves.
I mean, I've done that before because I did it when I first started. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm like, I should dress more like this or dress more like that. But it's not really you. And every person is different and has their unique like opinion or, you know, insights. And so that's what's going to make you special. Not like what you wear, because like I could go find that shirt. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I mean, even if it's vintage, you can still find something similar.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's really you. Like you are what's unique. And so you have to be really willing to share like your perspective and share you.
Yeah, because it's like there might be someone else out there just like you, even though you know, and that's looking for that. You know, it's like me where it's like, you know, when I'm going down men's fashion, I'm kind of looking for someone who's like kind of got the, you know, maybe the same build and whatever. Like, well, how's this work? And you're not really going to get that with someone who's just kind of doing what someone else is doing.
Yeah,
and like, going back to sustainability too, it's like you're not. And but I feel like that's all part of the process, the journey. You're going to copy other things.
Oh, yeah. You're going to, I mean, because at first when you're starting, you don't know what you're doing. I mean, some people know what they're doing, but sometimes you don't. And so you're just trying to like, you know, figure out some things. And then that's understandable too. But really the special sauce is like yourself.
And I'm sure looking back too, I'm sure, you know, like in those humble beginnings, you're like, those first pictures and that you look back going like, wow, what was like, you know, that was such a, I'm not that, you know, a different person. I found my way now. I'm sure that was a whole journey
and that's
happened overnight.
Yeah, you evolve too. Like you might start off a certain way, and then as you gain different experiences or things happen, you change as a person too. And so like style evolves, like, you know, thoughts evolve, like you evolve as a person too. So like, there's like a lot of evolution in my style and everything else, for sure.
That's beautiful. So I guess as we wrap up this interview, again, appreciate you coming in. I know it was a thundering, rainy, stormy day. Your hair still looks great. You know,
because of the garage. Thankful for the garage.
Did you have any kind of last things you want to plug, or you know, give a shout out to? What you got coming up, you know, I don't know.
You know, I guess well, sure. I guess like I do have, like I am going to be launching an online course, and it's style, but it's very specific. It's like how to style scarves, because I feel like that's an accessory that's so underutilized, and I love scarves. I almost wore a scarf outfit today, but I was like, okay, this weather is just easier to wear this. And so it's going to be on that. So it's coming out in the spring, and I guess I just want to leave with, I feel like this is so cheesy, but I just feel like you have to always have like a gratitude attitude. And I know it's easy these days to start getting like bitter and upset about things, but like when you just think about all the little things that you can be thankful for, it just makes everything so much better. Like I'm so thankful, like we have this opportunity, and I have my audience, and I get to do this, you know. So I don't know.
Gratitude attitude. I love that. That's I'm gonna kind of save that for myself. That's a good little motto to keep in mind. And real quick to plug in your social media. Where they can follow you.
I'm at Style of Sam everywhere.
Everywhere. Style of Sam YouTube, Style of Sam TikTok, Instagram. Cool, perfect.
Facebook, Pinterest. Everywhere.
Well, Samantha, I appreciate you coming in.
Yes, thank you for having
This was
me.
an amazing conversation. I'm glad we got you in here, and I have a whole new perspective and also respect for,
thank you.
Like you said, it's you make it look easy, but I'm sure it's a lot of work, and it doesn't look like there's an ounce of stress going on in there.
Sometimes there's a lot of stress in here.
Well, thank you. And again, I guess I'll just close this out. This has been another episode of the Social Academy. Until next time, class dismissed. Wow, yeah, man, you're that was solid. That was amazing. That was a good one.